Welcome back. So I hope you've enjoyed Unit 1, and so we move on now to Unit 2, and so we're going to look at different historical and philosophical perspectives on theology and the natural sciences. So just to review, Unit 1, we talked about what apologetics is, and particularly that it's intellectual defense of the Christian faith, both for Christians and for non-Christians, but particularly it's to remove intellectual obstacles to people following, becoming and being disciples of Jesus. Secondly, we talked about faith and reason, that they go together naturally, and that the importance of worldviews. And we talked about broadly three types of worldviews: the Western modern worldview, the Western postmodern worldview, and then more traditional worldviews. Third, we talked about apologetics in South Asian contexts, and particularly what might be some of the types of questions that would be important to address, and authors or speakers to engage with in India. And talked about science in the context of apologetics and how important it is, but also we need to be clear on what we mean by science, just like what we mean by theology. And finally, I just wanted to give an example of how one might engage with an apologetics talk using science, and just talked about how awesome God is, and we see that through science, through his creation, and how that can lead us to worship God or lead non-Christians to ask questions. So now we move on to Unit 2, and so we're going to begin with a very concrete example of where science and apologetics come together, and that's answering the question, do ancient religious texts contain modern scientific knowledge? Also talk about the Christian origins of modern science, and we'll talk about what science is and isn't, and particularly how science is not philosophy, and then we'll mention briefly some of the historical conflicts between science and Christianity. And so the main ideas that I'm trying to communicate here are the following. The first is that apologetics today is really influenced by past interactions, and so we need to keep that in mind, and that science and theology should be and can be seen in a positive relationship. But the past interactions between science and theology really illustrates how much context matters, and so we need to be sensitive to context. And finally, science is not philosophy. So let's now dive in